And welcome back to the Verde Valley Experience. I now have the extreme pleasure of sitting here with Mr. John Yazzie, who is an amateur historian and reenactor. And we're sitting here at Fort Verde State Historic Park in Camp Verde during their History of the Soldier time. And you like to come down and espouse lots of information upon wonderful people who come to visit, but you do this all the time. It's not just a once-a-year program for you.
No, it's not once a year. I will do presentations on the Navajo Code Talkers for the Tuba City Marine Corps Junior ROTC or the Navajo Code Talker Day. And this coming event is one of the three I usually got myself scheduled for. And what I will do is mainly I just talk about the code, you know, how the code was actually used, and that's pretty much it. But you know, if someone talks to me, I can talk about the social context of how the program was started. Because if I present everything, you know, people will just start to zone out.
Sure, it's a lot of information.
Yes, and so I just focus in on one thing, which is the code. How was the code used? Right,
which is very fascinating. We've all heard of the Navajo Code Talkers. It was a movie, it was a book, there's lots of information out there about that. And you do these sort of talks through the United States Marine Corps Historical Society?
Company.
Historical Company, which is fascinating. See, I've never heard of that.
Oh yes, they're mainly based on the East Coast, and so they work more with the Marine Corps Museum and the active duty Marines. For example, when I do the Navajo Code Talking presentation for the Navajo Code Talker Day, I will work with the Marine Corps recruiting office to, you know, they'll loan me about 4 Navajos who are about to go into boot camp, and I'll equip them fully in the World War II combat gear and communications gear. And I ask for them because they are just right out of high school, and a lot of code talkers were just out of high school when they joined up. So that just kind of gives them an impression of the youth of the code talkers going into service at that time period.
Right, and tell us, remind us again the time period for the Navajo Code Talkers.
Okay, the Navajo Code Talkers, right after the Pearl Harbor, that's when the idea for the program got initiated. But the first group started training about April 1942, and the program was expanded, you know, so that there were about 400 code talkers trained in the program when the war ended.
Yeah.
And of that 400, there's only about 12 left now.
Wow. But what an amazing thing, though. Completely unbreakable code. It's just awesome, except 2 others. Almost completely unbreakable.
Well, it is it is based on, the cryptology that it's based on is what we call word-letter substitution. All you're doing is substituting a English word for a Navajo word. Okay, English letter for a Navajo word. So the letter A will be represented by the Navajo word for apple or axe. So that idea of apple and axe is belasana is apple, axe is senil. And so all they did is just replace the English letter with a Navajo word and then transmitted that over the airways. So
that's great, and it worked. It worked beautifully. It ended the war.
Yes, it worked beautifully, and other Navajos could not understand it.
Oh.
Because, you know, all you're saying is just nouns. You're throwing out nouns and random. They're randomly thrown out nouns, and that's all they would hear. They wouldn't see a context to it. And so if another Navajo heard the code, yes, they would hear the Navajo word, but it would be all out of context of a sentence. And so to them it was just jumbled.
Right, to make it even more complicated. That's exceptional. Wow. And then when you do that talk, you have all the proper dress for the young men that you use, and you can do a demonstration, so to speak.
Yes, and I provide handouts. I actually provide handouts that people can take back with them, and I explain to them, you know, exactly how it's set out.
Wow. That's really interesting, and such a unique program. So did it take a while for these young men fresh out of high school or of that specific age to learn the code and then be put into use in the field?
They had to know Navajo fluently and English fluently before they were accepted into the program itself. They had to go through regular Marine Corps boot camp, and then they were sent to radio communications school to learn about the radios and to learn about the code at the same time.
Right, that's quite a lot.
And the code itself was updated every 6 months. And so it was always changing and evolving as the war progressed.
Right, that's true. We kind of had to, just in case. But that's amazing and wonderful. And again, such an incredibly valuable thing. And to have you, an actual living amateur historian, to keep this kind of information alive and in front of people it's really a wonderful thing to have.
Well, thank you.
Now, how did you get started in the United States Marine Corps Historical Company?
Well, I just saw them on the internet, really, but before then I had joined the Marine Corps because my grandmother's brother used to be a code talker. And so he was Leslie Cody. And then from there, on my own, I started learning about the code. But because I was in the military, I was always interested in exactly how was the code used, in what command structure was it used, and how was it used. And so then I saw the historical company on the internet, and they were more about promoting Marine Corps history. And so I said, well, this sounds like a good group to be with, and so I decided to join up with them.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. You can turn a lifelong interest and passion and something that's very close to home to you to something that you can share with the rest of the world. So that's really wonderful that you're able to do that.
Yes, well, thank you.
Thank you for coming to Fort Verde, and thank you for what you're doing to promote awareness and understanding for the Navajo code talking. That was such an important part of history for us, and it's just so wonderful that here in the Verde Valley we have so many Navajo folks, so it's really great to tie that all together. So I appreciate you meeting with us today.
All right, well, thank you.
And we'll be right back, so make sure you come back, you stay with us, because there's lots more of the Verde Valley Experience coming right at you.